Japan quickly became out of reach of land-based bombers and naval aircraft. But a naval officer, a submariner, came up with an idea to sneak a Navy aircraft carrier within a few hundred miles of Japan, launch Army bombers that would attack the Japanese capital as well as other military targets. They then could fly on to Allied-controlled China to land and refuel, then continue to meet up with Allied forces in Western China. The legendary Jimmy Doolittle, then a lieutenant colonel in the Army Air Corps, was tasked to develop the feasibility of such an attack and to plan it. He selected the B-25 Mitchell bomber as the only aircraft that could take off in the short distance of an aircraft. These trawlers spotted them. They were forced to launch. And ladies and gentlemen, from the right, the B-25 bomber Panchito, Doolittle's Raiders, simulates 30 seconds over Tokyo. The raid on Tokyo by the Doolittle Raiders, coming in low over the Sea of Japan. Once they reached the coastline, they popped up to bombing altitude. Bomb bay doors open. And they bombed Tokyo. 16 of the B-25s. Although they did very little damage to Tokyo and the other cities they bombed, it was a great psychological blow to the Japanese. President Roosevelt went on the radio the next day saying that the B-25s of Doolittle Raiders had come from a secret base called Shangri-La. Several of them were captured. They ran out of gas, having to depart the carrier 200 miles earlier than anticipated. Some of them crashed into the China Sea. Others made it into Japan-occupied China and were tortured and killed. Some made it to safety. Doolittle thought that he would be court-martialed for it. But instead he was promoted, and it was a great psychological boost to the American people. Panchito, the airplane you see flying out here today, is being flown by Paul Dewar in the left seat and Larry Kelly in the right seat. They're sponsored by the Disabled American Veterans, one of our sponsors here today and the sponsor of Panchito. And right here is Lynn May from the DAV. And Lynn, happy to have you up here and happy to see Panchito here again today.
We are always so happy to be here, Larry. Proud to see Panchito in the air today without that rain.
Indeed. Tell us a little bit about the DAV as we watch Panchito fly.
Well, listen there to the sounds of freedom. Here it comes. The Disabled American Veterans is proud to bring you Panchito. It keeps the memory alive of those guys that flew those planes and really won the freedom for us. We owe them everything. The Disabled American Veterans developed this program to bring public awareness to disabled veterans here and in communities across the nation. By using the B-25, it reminds the public of the sacrifices veterans have made and continue to make to keep our nation free. The DAV is dedicated to one single purpose: building better lives for our nation's disabled veterans and their families. And here comes Panchito again.
1,700 horsepower on each side of the cockpit of that aircraft. And I know the DAV is not only, we're here at an Air Force base, but the DAV is not only concerned with Air Force veterans, it's all veterans, is it not?
That's correct, Larry. We will serve all veterans. It's free service. We rely on donations. We're not funded by the government. And all theaters of the war, every veteran out there, if you need some help, we're here to help you. That's our mission, and that's why we're here. Stop down and see us where you see the big yellow flag. We've got all kinds of freebies down there for you. All kinds of things down there. Local DAV members who can answer questions. If you have any questions about benefits, or maybe you're just one of those patriotic people who wants to help, come see us. We can help. We can use the help.
Well, thank you so much. Lynn May from the Disabled American Veterans, ladies and gentlemen, the sponsor of Panchito. North American Aviation Factory in Kansas City in the fall of 1944. Like I said, two Curtiss-Wright 2,600 cubic inch radial engines, developing 1,700 horsepower. 13 50 caliber machine guns, carries 3,000-pound bomb loads, depth charges, incendiary bombs, parafrag bombs, or even could carry a torpedo. 8 5-inch HVAR rockets could be mounted under hardpoints under the wings. Here she is with a photo pass showing the top planform view. The crew on the B-25 consisted of 6 men. The pilot, the co-pilot, bombardier, navigator, top turret gunner, engineer, radio operator, waist gunner, and the tail gunner armorer. Panchito, incidentally, it took him 8 years in the restoration to get it to the condition that it is today. And once again, the performance brought to you by the Disabled American Veteran. I want to thank you for your patriotism for our country and for helping keep the spirit of America flying. DAV, the proud sponsor of Panchito. Coming up next will be Herb and Ditto. You say, wait a minute, Herb and Ditto? That's true, as Panchito makes one other pass here for us. Going to give you one more opportunity, one more photo pass for you to get a good shot of the top side view of Panchito. Paul Mueller in the left seat, Larry Kelly in the right seat. They swap out, fly the aircraft. I'll tell you a little bit more about Herb and Ditto as soon as we get Panchito on the ground. Over your left shoulder now, coming Panchito. AMCers, don't forget scratch off matchup game.
What's that?
Little cards are out there. Make sure that you scratch off and see if you can match up for a prize. Programs are for sale. And I want to remind you once again, no smoking on the ramp at any time. No smoking around the display aircraft. They're loaded with fuel. We don't want anything to happen. Here we go with Panchito. Final pass. I want to say thank you to Chevron for sponsoring Julie Clark. You'll see her in just a few minutes. Embry-Riddle for sponsoring Matt Chapman and the Eagle 580. And of course the Disabled American Veterans for sponsoring Panchito. No federal endorsement applied. And for those who provided generous support of the morale, welfare, and recreation elements of our air show today, those sponsors with no federal endorsement applied include Keller Williams Realty, Delaware Ladybug, Vacation Village Resort, the Bouncer Boys, Brinks Home Security, Boeing Corporation. T-28 that Herb flies was used to train Navy pilots in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. There's Panchito just touching down out in front of them. They were jet transition trainers, the last aircraft which pilots trained to fly in before they learned to fly jets. Their cockpit layout was similar to an F-86 Saberjet. The C models of the T-28 were modified with a tail hook so they could be used to teach the pilots